Hello. All right. Thank you for being on Super Awesome Data. It is going to be fun to do this series. It's going to be a little different. So this is the first of a new series where we're going to be going through the music theory course together live, which is going to be cool. I just as a by way of a quick background on the course, and then we'll jump in, is when I first created the course, the videos that accompany each lesson were an afterthought. Yeah, the thought was, all right, I'm just going to create these PDFs. There's going to be exercises, quizzes, illustrations, and all of that. And Kristen was like, oh, you should make some videos with these. And I was like, oh, ding, that's a good idea. Since music theory, color music is audio visual, that makes sense. So the videos were created, to accompany, supplement the PDF lessons. But what you don't get in these videos is the opportunity to kind of have some sidebars like we're going to have in this series, where we're going to be talking through some of the points in real time as we go. So as we go means this is going to take a period of time to go through each lesson. We're not going to go through all 20 or really 21 lessons right now. That would be excessive. But we're going to start with lesson 0. Lesson 0 is called lesson 0 because, to me, preamble is often skipped over. I often skip over the preamble of a book or the introduction to a book because I want to start with chapter 1. But lesson 0, or the preamble in this case, really is foundational. It's more for concepts than it is actual practical patterns. But like I say, it's fundamental. So it's really interesting, or it's really important, I should say. I think it's interesting, but super important. So let's jump in, and this will likely evolve as we go. So thanks for joining, and I'm going to read and have some sidebars as we go, and then we can chat about any concepts as well as we cover some of these points. So let's jump in. I'm going to pull up lesson 0, making your own music. And I put little lines along the side of this. I'm going to share my screen and read it as we go, because I'm going to be tempted to have sidebars after every sentence. I think it's going to be tempting for me to do that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to read it, and I think this will be good. So, and especially as we go through each subsequent lesson, that's going to be, I think, even more interesting as we go. But introduction. This is not a course about how to master the guitar so you can play your favorite songs. A course like that would be a waste of time. No one really wants to parrot other musicians. They want to create their own music. You should write your own songs, not just cover other artists. This is what every satisfied musician understands. What follows is a visual system that will change the way you understand music so you can compose amazing songs. Each year, I help guitar players stop wasting time spinning their wheels and get them the insight they need to craft great tunes. This system will work for you regardless of your style or genre. To get the most out of this course, I encourage you to do 3 things. Read each lesson and understand the color music system. 2, filter your song ideas through the system. And 3, write songs that you truly love. Music is meant to be created. Guitarists who learn how to write their own songs thrive. Guitarists who don't flounder. May we all enjoy a life of creativity by mastering the art and science of songwriting. And a quick sidebar here is that it's not just for guitar. That's sometimes a question that I get is, hey, is there a music theory course for piano? Or how about for ukulele? The truth is that music theory is this beautiful universal language between different instruments. And so the same patterns and principles apply whether you're playing the keyboard, whether you're playing a fretboard, a guitar fretboard, bass guitar here off to the side, ukulele, banjo, whatever, violin. So even though there's a picture of a guitar here, It's not meant to be limiting in that way. A lot of the illustrations are specifically designed for guitar, but frankly, a lot of the illustrations in the course are, if anything, even more conducive to piano because they're in table format conceptually, and those are lines, straight lines that you can apply directly on a keyboard. So if you play piano especially, definitely check out the course because it can help you a lot. If you play guitar, it's going to open an entire world of, whoa, this is actually how music works. All right, so let's move on. So why most musicians fail? Most guitar players waste enormous amounts of time practicing. We all know how mind-numbing it is to spend precious hours taking lessons or just playing the guitar to improve our technique, but then struggling to write a catchy tune. When we hear our own songs, we wonder why they sound flat, or worse, we question whether our ideas are really as good as we thought they were. But what if the problem wasn't our ideas? What if the problem was the way we expressed those ideas through music? The problem is simple. You really can hear good music in your head. There's just a disconnect between your ideas and the sounds that you can actually make on your guitar. But the fact that songwriting doesn't come easily isn't really your fault. Your only real problem is that you've been playing with a disadvantage, which is that you've been trying to create art using an invisible art form, which is legitimately difficult. It's legitimate. When you think about it, it makes sense. Music is sound, and sound is invisible. So you can't really see a song as you write it in the same way that an artist can see paint, for example. And you can't hold sound in your hands like a ball of clay or watch it bend like metal, which makes it uniquely abstract and challenging. Not only that, but music is also the most analytical of all the arts, like chess, full of patterns and logic and structure. So trying to learn the guitar, let alone write songs on it, is like trying to play chess blindfolded, which is difficult at best, if not impossible, right? I personally have never tried to play chess blindfolded, but I know what that would feel like because I did try to learn the guitar without seeing the patterns that are at play, which is essentially the same thing. Especially as you advance through the course, you see that, whoa, the fretboard is this intricate matrix of beautiful interlaced patterns. And to try to suss that out through intuition is, like I say, legitimately challenging. So, of course, some have figured it out, like folks like Jimmy Page and Lenny Kravitz and John Lennon and Bob Marley, all the auditory and tactile learners who are naturally suited to understanding the guitar without an instruction manual or handbook. You know, the rare few who seem to grasp it all sight unseen because they can play by ear and just get it, in air quotes. But for the rest of us, people like you and me who are visual learners, the prospects of really cracking the code to songwriting are more slim. Or it definitely seems so anyway, because the options are the options for visualizing music are challenging and limited to only three main options: finger charts, tablature, and notation. Those are kind of the big three. In this course, I'll explain all of these methods and more. And it's true that they can help you build your technical proficiency on the guitar. But that's just it. These visual aids were designed to facilitate performance and dexterity, not to illustrate how music really works or to help you as a songwriter, which nobody will tell you, and I mean no one. Especially the music publishers who exploit our desire to play by selling us sheet music and songbooks filled with finger charts, tablature, and notation, of course, since they want us to be consumers and performers instead, not songwriters. In other words, they want us to stay tethered to the talents of other musicians, like glorified puppets, you could say, instead of self-reliant songwriters, because they have books and apps and subscriptions to sell. And sidebar, if you see the lesson 20, which is the last lesson in the course, I expound upon that idea a little bit more. And so it's like the bookend to this bookend of the course, and helps to elaborate on that point a bit more. And you'll see some visuals in the video, especially that lead up to that point. So it's hopefully, especially an aha moment. All right, sidebar complete there. Let's continue. So ironically, you find yourself less free than ever, lured to transcendence by the siren song of music, only to plunge into the dark waters of disillusionment, forced into being the cliched cover artist who can't create your own art, or left feeling insecure, at least, about the songs you do write because they lack clarity and structure, the clarity and structure that you hear in all of your favorite music on the radio. So, what then are you supposed to do? If sound is invisible and your options for illustrating music fall short, then what's the point? Are we simply out of luck? Okay, so kind of a downer opening. It does seem dire. Definitely was the case for me getting into music theory. For years and years and years and years and years. It was super frustrating, and thought I was basically screwed in terms of really understanding music and fully immersing myself in the process and being able to express the ideas that were inside of me. But turns out that music theory truly is the path to freedom when it comes to expressing yourself through music. Theory to the rescue. So, like you, I'm a visual learner, so I know the feeling of being stuck, and it's terrible. When I bought my first guitar 25 years ago, updated, that's more like, oh man, it's more like 30 or 30 plus years now. I was inspired by my favorite artists to create, only to end up writing on their coattails, regurgitating their stuff, and struggling to write my own. And the same questions went through my head. Is songwriting really reserved for a privileged few, like some elite cabal in a walled garden with talents inaccessible to the rest of us? I knew that people like the Beatles, for example, had started out by mimicking their own heroes, following in the footsteps of others. But then at some point, they made the leap from being consumers to producers by striking out on their own path. Though, how exactly did they do it? Had they simply learned through osmosis, playing countless songs by other artists? Or was the answer more concrete, more reproducible? Had, well, I discovered after years of searching, reading over 100 books on music, studying hundreds of songs and analyzing compositions for more than 10,000 hours, what I learned is that songwriters don't have any superpowers. The Beatles weren't musicians, nor were the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin, Bob Dylan, Bob Marley, or any others for that matter. Instead, what became clear through all this study is that they had somehow cracked a hidden code that guided them in the process. Of course, they couldn't see this code with their own eyes. The songs they created were invisible. Yet each one discovered the underlying patterns of music within their mind's eye, which is amazing. And the way they did this, the way they mastered the art of songwriting, was by learning the science of sound. That is, by learning the principles for organizing sound in such a way that people are compelled to listen, which is called music theory. By that, however, I do not mean music notation. Sidebar, emphasize, do not mean music notation. And that will become increasingly clear as we get through the course, especially in part 3. We really dismantle music notation and show how it is not music theory at all. So definitely keep them separated. All right, sidebar complete there. So in fact, none of the songwriters I just mentioned could read a single note. And by far, the majority of musicians today can't either. So that's not what I'm talking about. And I'm not referring to tablature or finger charts either. What I mean by music theory is more interesting, as it turns out, because at first the phrase itself seems to be a contradiction in terms. Literally, it means the act of contemplating music. The word theory comes from the Greek theoria, which means to look at, view, speculate, or see. Sidebar on the word speculate here. It's not speculation as in hypothesize or guess. Speculate as in like spectacle, spec, to see. Okay, to continue. So, but if music is sound and sound is invisible, then the real definition of music theory is to look at the invisible, which is impossible, right? Or at least it's not very insightful using the traditional methods we have, like finger charts and notation, which look more like Braille for the blind than anything else. They really do. Like if you look at tablature and notation, it's a bunch of black dots that without context don't convey much, if anything at all. So with that said, what are you supposed to do?